All right, we have a comprehensive tool called SoftPerfect Network Scanner that was installed. And we're in Server 2016, and I'm going to launch that tool. And we're not purchasing a license. We'll just click Continue. And this tool can do a lot of stuff. I mean, we're going to scan a subnet, but we're not just port scanning. I mean, we're past that. Let's go in 192.168.75.1 to 192.168.75.254, 192.168.75.254. Now, before we start scanning, let's see some of the things we can do. So let's go to the actions, and we could just do DHCP server discovery right now. We could open up particular device. Let's just discover DHCP servers right now. Let's just click that and give that just a moment. And it will discover the VMware DHCP server at the very least. So it's basically doing DHCP discovers on the various interfaces. And we found a DHCP server right there. Okay, so we found it, and we know right now that we have one. That'd be a really good tool to find out if there are any rogue DHCP servers on a subnet. Okay, let's close that. Let's look at other things. Let's go to options. And we could open up and query WMI, Windows Management Instrumentation. Like I said, this is a service in Microsoft that you can use to query, and they have sort of their own kind of syntax. It's really similar to SQL, where you can query hardware and software. So let's just click that, and let's mark all of these. Let's try to query the hardware and software, like the CPU, the RAM, the computer model, part, serial, asset tag, product key, if these things exist, the name of the machine, uptime. This is all via WMI as opposed to NetBIOS or some other kind of query. And usually you need some kind of username and password to query this stuff. Very often you only need a regular user. You don't need an administrator user to query things, but if we know some admin accounts, we'll put them in. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a specific account, and we're going to try all login password pairs. We don't have any, so we'll click Manage, and we're going to create some usernames and passwords. We'll click Add. Now, you might not know anything, but the idea of enumeration is to go beyond just simple scanning. So the username, in this case, we know that many machines have administrator. We know that already. And that the password in our case is capital P-A $W0RD. And click OK. We could add more administrator accounts if we knew they existed. Let's add another one. We know that with Metasploitable, the username is msfadmin and the password is msfadmin. And if you're afraid you didn't type it right, click the little I here. And yep, I typed it OK. And you can hide it again. Click OK. So we've added some credentials, and let's close that. We have those credentials handy. We're going to try querying all this by WMI. So let's close that. And by the way, you can add more if you want. If you know what the different WMI classes are, like boot devices and stuff, you can add that stuff if you want to, and add WQL as opposed to SQL statements. But that's beyond the scope of what we're doing. So I'm going to close this. We're doing WMI queries. Let me go to options. You can query remote registry if you want. If you want to query like stuff out of the registry. This is just a few things, like I'd like to know the service pack level. That would sure be interesting. And the Windows version and the Windows type, that might be really interesting. So let me close those. What else can I query? Options, services. Sometimes it's nice to know the various services, and you can add more if you wish. I don't care about services at the moment. Let me go to options. Remote files. Yeah, are there any Outlook or Outlook Express? And you can add more. You could tell it to look for files, look for specific files. Like if, let's go new. And I wonder if this will work. Property, file exists. If the file exists, the item name, I don't know if star.doc will work or not. How about star.txt? Probably asking for it by doing that. Star.doc. Don't know if those exist or not, or have a full file name. Click OK. No, it didn't like that. So it actually wants us to put in where this thing can be found. So I'm just going to cancel that. That'll take too long. So let me close this. Let me go, and what else? Oh, let's definitely use SNMP here. So if you know the MIB numbers in SNMP, and you can do Google searches for it, we can just do some simple querying here. Let me just mark all by SNMP, and let me close that. And what we're going to have to do is make sure that we're using the proper community string. What else do we have here in options? We could look for groups. Yeah, I'd like to see if we have members of administrators. Okay, and we could even add a new one. Let's add domain admins. Domain admins. Are there any members of a, this would be a global group, members of a global group, because domain admins is a global group. So it would be domain admins. See if that works. Click OK. And let's close that. Let's go to options. What else can we? If you had devices that respond to XML, you could use HTTP to talk to them. We know we have one device that will respond to SSH. So I'm clicking SSH. I'm clicking Mark All. And that was that when we look at the logins of the passwords, manage, that is the MSF admin. So let me close that. What else can we query by? We could look at performance counters. How about PowerShell? I want to use some PowerShell. So let's let's use the accounts, try all the password login pairs, and let's try all of the PowerShell queries, SQL Server version. Not that we, well, maybe we do have SQL running. So we can just do some PowerShell. We could add more PowerShell queries if we want. That is for you to explore later. And let's see, what else do we have? IP address, auto detect local IP range, detect external IPs. No, we'll specify. All right, so we've got our IP range here. We've got all sorts of different kinds of queries that we're going to do here. And when we go into the SNMP, let's go back to SNMP here, and just make sure that the community string is set to public. So when I pick something, if it's not public, I can select it and click Edit. Now, public is only because that is the default community string. You might have situations where they're using other community strings. A community string is simply an identifier. If an SNMP manager is not using the same community string, then the device, the SNMP agent on the device, can refuse the query. So I've had SNMP community strings that were like Observium or the name of the domain or the name of something else. In our case, I think we just have public. So we'll click OK and close that. So I think we're pretty much ready to let this scan run. Might take a while, so I'm going to click Start Scanning and let it go. And we're finding stuff right away. We'll come back in a moment. Let me just expand this. We'll come back in a moment when all of this is done. Looks like the scan is done. So let's see what we have here. So in 75.1, we were unable to connect or log in, okay, because we did not provide the username or password that this particular host wants. Same thing with 75.2. Windows 8, same thing, because we didn't provide the Windows 8 username and password. But 75.12, we were able to find some shares, and we were able to log in, and we were able to find out the CPU make and model, the amount of RAM it has, the type of computer, part number, serial number, which there was none, but that's okay. And we were able to find out different bits of information as we scroll way over. Our queries turned this information up. We would have to expand each of these to see more. So it's like, see the domain admins there and see the administrators right here. Just expand that. We see all the members of the administrators. Administrators has, of course, other admin type groups that are members. And we can scroll over and see more and more information here. If there's any SQL information, any file listings, any last log messages, any product keys, of course in our case not really. And so we can see more and more information here. So we were able to use a number of different protocols really. LDAP, WMI, what is it, SNMP. NetBIOS to get a bunch of different information about these various devices. So this is using SoftPerfect Network Scanner to use a variety of techniques to enumerate information off of our subnet.